What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the North Leeds Jitz podcast. This week, I think it's episode 144.
Wow.
It's getting up there in the numbers now. Yeah. Now we're consistent
Still
again.
just me and you having a chat.
Yeah. I think that's the funnest bit about it. I think some of the... It's always hard, like, people tell me they enjoy the podcast, but they don't necessarily always tell me what they enjoy in the podcast. I don't know if it's just the random times when we're talking business, or nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, or if it's something to do with our own personal lives, or if it's something else, but...
Just a broader connection, I think, mate. I would imagine, for most people. They're still connected to the academy and they're talking about jiu-jitsu, because most people love jiu-jitsu, don't they? I do love jiu-jitsu. I've not just turned up in a gi because I love it. I've just been teaching classes this morning.
The gi version of John Donaher, where he just never leaves his uniform.
I did 6:30 class. Coach James taught an amazing class today. Well done. And then just done a quick private for Ross. And I've not had a chance to change. It's been a busy week.
So, we've got a few topics to talk about today. I wanted to start us off with something Bernardo Faria posted recently, which was worst advice I ever got in jiu-jitsu, and then in quotes, "You are using too much strength, stop using strength when you roll." Best advice I got in jiu-jitsu from my first instructor, who gave me all my belts from white to black, and in quotes, "Everyone is saying that you're using too much strength. Are you getting tired?" Bernardo said no, and then the instructor said, "Okay, so keep using as much strength as you can and don't listen to him."
I'm not sure I agree with that advice.
Interesting. I think the key point is, like, are you getting tired, right? So if you're using strength but not getting tired, is it that your strength is just reinforcing good technique because you are being efficient?
What if you are super fit, like a phenomenal athlete, and you just don't get tired?
But we still see very fit people get very tired in jiu-jitsu, right? So it's, I reckon Mo Farah could come in here and be absolutely exhausted.
Bad example.
Yeah.
He was about 50 kilos. You get battered.
True. Rich Froning or something, they might do pretty well, but I reckon after a couple of rounds he'd be very tired, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't disagree with what he's saying on what you're trying to say, but I would frame it in a different manner. And so I wouldn't even talk about the use of the word strength. I have done that with students because it's a word they can understand. But intensity is the word that I will always use. And so my question to you to understand your level of intensity is if you can play back to me exactly what happened in our role. If you can tell me what happened, move for move. Okay, you did this, you took a grip, you passed my guard. I tried to do this, I went there and you did that. If you can do that and tell me the narrative of the role, you're explaining to me that you had a level of intensity which was low enough that you were aware of what the hell was going on. The challenge is when people have an intensity level, and it's different for everybody, but an intensity level that tips them to the point where they no longer are aware of what's going on. That's when the problems start. That's when the injuries happen, not just for you, but for them. That's where you start to muscle a lot more and fight a lot more. And you don't often realise it. And I think Bernardo's point there about, like, it's bad advice to say using so much strength. You don't often realise you are. But it might be the strength of your grip. And it's interesting, I was explaining to Ross today, like, and you might be the same to you, but because my intensity level's so low, doesn't mean I don't get tired, but my intensity level's low. I'm never above a zone 3 on my whoop, ever, when I roll, unless I'm rolling over like you or someone that's a bit scrambly. Because of that, I'm able to feel what the other person's state is. So if you're rolling with me, I know if you're intense or not, because I can hear your breathing rate, I can feel your heart rate through your rash guard, I can feel how strong your grips are, and I'm aware of that. You won't be aware of that. You just simply won't be. It's a classic one where, you know, someone's literally trembling. So the height of the arousal state is so high that the adrenaline's flowing so strong they're trembling. I'm like, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, "You're not fine." You think you're fine, but you're not fine. You've gone to a level of intensity or arousal. That's another great word to use. We're doing a masterclass with Phil Learning last night for X45, and he used that word. A hyper state of arousal, which is no longer placing you in a state where you can understand what the hell's going on. That's the danger for me.
Yeah. I wonder if it changes because Bernardo's obviously a multiple-time world champion.
And a big guy.
Yeah, and a very big guy. And I wonder if when you are competing, when those physical attributes, it's like you have to use every tool in the toolbox. So if we don't know when he got this advice. We assume if he got it as a white belt, it was because it was reinforcing. He was using it to. It's usually when people are using too much strength because they just don't have the technique yet. But for all we know, he could have got this advice at black belt or purple belt or something when he was probably already really good. But people might have just assumed that, oh, he's beating me because he's bigger and stronger, so stop using your strength, like use your technique.
But I mean, if you're competing, that's completely different question, isn't it? If you're competing, it's like, do whatever you need to do to win. Like, it doesn't really matter. You know, no one cares if you executed a beautifully technical triangle in the final of the Worlds or the British Open or whatever, or you had a scrambly match for 6 minutes and you won by an advantage. Like, you still won.
Yeah.
So I think in competition, you use whatever attributes you've got. And we tend to find, don't we, that our students that have come from a solid foundational strength and fitness base, so professional rugby players, things like that, tend to fare quite well in competition because they've got that robustness, they've got that engine, they've got that physicality. And so absolutely use that. But the place to use that is on the competition mats. It's not in here. Because in here, you've got to roll way below that level of intensity that you're going to take to competition in order to learn. So the awareness piece isn't just, being able to, tell me exactly what happened. It's about seeing opportunities. And you can only see opportunity. And this is what I was talking to Ross about this morning. Like, the efficiency of jiu-jitsu is not getting what you want. It's taking the most efficient thing that's available. And that's when jiu-jitsu feels effortless. When you're rolling with someone who's just so far ahead of you, it's not that they're quicker at doing what they want to do. It's they're just capitalising on what you're doing. That's the efficiency, right? But you can't see those opportunities if you are in fight mode because you are single focused and you can't change this. This is your brain, your amygdala, you've been hijacked, you're in a super aroused state, you are focused on fight, survive, boom, we're down a very narrow channel. What we want to do is have this awareness. So do you know where everyone else is in the room whilst you're rolling? You won't be able to do that all the time, but that's another good indicator of how intense you're rolling. Can you feel the other person's state? Can you monitor and check in with yourself during a roll and say, wow, I'm fucking working really hard here. Can I just bring it down a bit? It's really important to have those conversations with ourselves in jiu-jitsu. It's not just, you can't just rock up and just roll without thinking about this stuff. And the challenge here is that both parties in this physical argument that we're having in jiu-jitsu have to play a role to keep the intensity to a level where each one of them can develop. And of course, everyone's level's different. So this is where the challenge comes, because I go in at a 6 out of 10. You come in at 8. I feel that. I go to 7. You feel that. You go to 9. I go to 9. You go to 11. We're having a fight. So it's on both people to keep it playful. And the best way to do it, honestly, is to smile while you're rolling. Grandad used to say, you can't be angry with someone who's smiling at you. So just smile. And it changes the whole feeling of the roll.
I was speaking to Tony after the comp team. He's going to jump on the podcast, actually.
Yeah, great guy, Tony. He's a natural athlete. Yeah. Jesus Christ,
He's such a good mover, but he's also got great physicality, and he uses it well. And I was saying we were just sat down at comp team, and he was just asking for advice, and I was saying how his mentality when he's rolling is perfect. Like, he doesn't accept anything. So if you sweep him, you have to work very hard to try and keep him down, which is the perfect mentality in comp team. That's exactly what you'd want from someone. However, when you are one of the bigger people, you can get away with things that wouldn't necessarily work against someone with your own size, which makes me feel for the bigger people, because like what I talked about last week, you can get a positive reinforcement to something that is a negative.
Yeah.
That wouldn't necessarily work. So I said to him, like, if you're rolling with someone of around, let's say, Johnny's level, like a Josh Levine or someone who's like similar stripe level, but is smaller than you, and you do something that you think, that wouldn't have worked on Johnny, like just question it twice and think, okay, was that the right technique, or was that just the technique that could have got me out right then and there?
Yeah.
And would I have got punished for it at different level?
It's the same for kind of experience as you roll and you've been training for longer. So it's that honest self-reflection every time you roll of understanding. So like I'm at a level of experience where I can get the better of everyone in the academy still, right? Most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time or whatever. Depending on how hard I try what we're doing. But often I can get the better of people, but I know myself that was scruffy. That was sloppy. You kind of got away with it there. That wasn't ideal. Wow, they nearly passed your guard there. That's not good. So, like, it's checking back in with yourself. I'm not telling myself, oh, yeah, I'm beating everyone. I'm having a word with myself and saying, how did that feel? Was that effortless, efficient? Was it clinical? Those are the conversations you've got to constantly have with yourself. That's why it's so difficult, this thing, man. Like, where else are you going to do that? You go to the gym today, mindless. You're probably on your phone in between sets, distracted. Like, you've got to have uber focus. I was at, I've spoken at 2 events this week. The Everman Cinema in Leeds yesterday, which was great for Sudulo, and at the National Theatre in London. A phenomenal venue called the Buffini Chow Deck. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it looks over the Thames. Beautiful, National Theatre. And we were talking there about leadership, and there was an event called Fit to Lead. And this company, Babel, who asked me to come and be on this panel, they've got 3 pillars of fitness: physical, mental, and ethical. Mental isn't your ability to think, it's your ability to be able to find space to top up your cup to be able to be a good leader. And I was on a panel with Dr. Steve Ingham, who is, Google him, he's the mastermind behind all of our Olympic success for the last 20 years, like a top sports psychologist, sports scientist. Sarah Furness, who's combat helicopter pilot, and Orla Chennai, who is a sports broadcaster on TNT and Discovery. And they were saying, or we were saying, that it's so important to find places where you can disconnect in order to top up your cup, whatever that means for you. And a lot of people are talking about meditation. You don't need to meditate. You don't need to sit still if that's not for you. Jiu-Jitsu gives you the ability to absolutely focus, and that's the key thing here. It's not about disconnecting all the time. It's about shifting your focus to the here and now, to the present. And that's something that life at the moment in our hyper-connected world makes it really difficult to do. We've got to try and find spaces in our life to focus on where we are right now. That's why breathing's so important, right? That's why people talk about breath work, and I'm a massive advocate of that. But Jiu-Jitsu is the perfect physical meditation. You cannot think about your work emails. You can't think about what you're having for dinner. You can't think about, your son who was naughty at school and got a detention. Gabriel, we need to speak about that later on. You can't think about that stuff when you're rolling, man. You're only thinking on what's going on. And that gives you that recharge, so you can then go back into the rest of your life and be even better.
Do you think about that a lot when you're on the mats, like how much jiu-jitsu can affect you in that manner, or just having done it so long now, is it just a given and it's just in the back of your mind, or like don't really think about it?
I don't think about anything when I roll, and so the thing I'm trying to do when I'm rolling is to do things without thinking, to be unconsciously competent. So just moving before my brain's kicked in to the right place is what I'm searching for. It's instinctual movement. It's feeling. I was talking to Ross again today about, using your body as a sensor. So classic like collar sleeve, and I've taught this in GB3 recently. If I've got a foot on your hip and 2 hands on your upper body, sleeve, collar, if I feel weight in my hands, I know you're moving away. So then I go to my tripod sweep sequence or whatever. If I feel weight in my feet, pressure on my feet, I know you're coming in. And it's using those sensors. So that's what I'm trying to continue to develop, is the sensory feedback of my opponent and the unconsciously competent ability to not think about what I'm doing, just to do the right thing. And that's, I would suggest, not that I'm anywhere close to it, but that's the pursuit of mastery. If you don't have to think about jiu-jitsu and you just do it and it's amazing, you beat, that's the top of the tree for me.
Yesterday when I was teaching, I had a moment where I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So we're teaching the...
What did you say?
I was teaching the Ouchigari, so it's like the inside trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted them to do it with more resistance. And I said, as a partner, you know it's coming, so don't anticipate it and remove your leg too quickly, because your anticipation will beat their speed. Which I think in general is true. Like if someone's very fast, if you can anticipate what they're going to do, you will seem infinitely faster than they are.
Yep.
However, if you want to beat anticipation, you need deception. So like if you can deceive someone into thinking what you're going to do next, then your deception will beat the anticipation. I was thinking, so that's a physical attribute that you're overcoming with your mental capabilities, with either anticipation or deception. And then I was thinking about, well, that's just what I said. But then I thought, I thought about it a bit later on around, okay, what are the other physical attributes and what do you need to use to overcome them? The deepest I got was, I guess, with strength, you're trying to find the longest levers. So, if me and you were trying to lift up a truck, but we didn't have any levers, like it'd be very difficult. But an old lady with a long enough lever could lift up that truck, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if there's if anything comes to mind. I guess the other major physical attributes would be strength, explosiveness, flexibility, those kind of things.
Well, the thing, when you talk about deception, the thing that sprung to my mind is the word surprise. So like if you look at like special forces and tactics around that, and the way they, let's say the Iranian embassy siege, which everyone knows about in 1980, I think it was, and they stormed a building which there was hostages in there, the terrorists knew they were coming. You have to create deception to enable surprise. It's surprise that gets you the advantage. Not that they're faster, bigger, stronger soldiers. They're more highly trained. It's the surprise. It's the reason they use flashbangs in rooms. It's a loud flash of light. It's a loud noise. And it just stops people for a second. When you're rolling with someone, you may have done this before, but you'll execute a technique on someone and they will smile and like laugh about it.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've got them.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've got the element of surprise. They didn't see it coming. And it's like a wonderful feeling. It's like, oh shit, like you got me. So trying to find surprise. You can't surprise anyone if you're insistent on what you want. So again, chatting to Ross, I'm using you as an example, Ross, because we were chatting this morning. If you want an armbar from the closed guard and you pull at someone's arm and they resist, you have to pull harder. They're going to resist harder. This is now an arm wrestle. That's not jiu-jitsu. But if you pull at that arm and they resist and you go somewhere else, they weren't expecting that. They're expecting you to pull again. That's when surprise happens. And the challenge here is for new people to jiu-jitsu is like you don't know enough stuff to know all the answers to the different problems. But the more you train, the more you put yourself in that environment at an intensity level which is commensurate to your current ability, which allows you to think and gives you more time, then you will develop an experience level, which means that you have all the answers and you can capitalize on people's mistakes and you will feel more efficient to yourself and to them. To your point there, T, you will feel faster. You're not faster, you're just more efficient.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned around guard play. And it's actually something I was teaching yesterday because I was teaching single leg X, and the idea was that you don't want to sweep them into the direction where they're either into their base of support or where their weight is not, right? So if you're doing that classical up and out kind of sweep, but their head's very far forward, like over you, then their weight isn't there. It's going to be very difficult to do. But if their head's really forward, you give them a little kick, they're going to get off balance. Or if their head's really far away from you, extend them away a little bit. And it was funny because I gave them like the 3 little off balance points from single leg X, and I said, like, okay, partners give the reaction, you guys got to figure it out. and there were still, you could see the people who were maybe more logical in the room, and they were thinking, okay, well, his head's far away, so it needs to be pushed away. But really, his leg was far away, but his head was up, so it would have been the other way. And there was the people in the room who are more able to kind of just be a bit creative, I guess. I'm not saying the one's better than the other, it's just the way people learn things. And they could kind of just figure it out based on the feel of it, and like, oh, okay, his weight, I can feel his weight's that way, so I must go that way, rather than being like, right, head position there, therefore this, and then, you know. So it was quite interesting. The example I used was in the kids' classes. Like, the kids love the person stands up in closed guard, you grab the ankles and push them over. It's like, you know, it's a simple and effective sweep. But they all get stuck because, you know, person stands up, they grab the ankles, person goes, I'm going to have both your collars and lean forward. And they're like, sweep, sweep, sweep. And it's not working. So I said, like, it would be the easiest things in the world for them just to grab a cuff, put the feet on the hips and take them forward because their weight is there. But it's so hard for them to actually grasp that concept for whatever reason. Joe made a funny comment. It's like, it's not just the kids that do that, it's I do it too. And I gave him a little integrity sticker for that.
Well done, Joe. The way I think about this, and Flavio Almeida talks about this quite a lot, which is great. You can't shut all doors in jiu-jitsu. You can't close. It's the art of war. You can't defend on all fronts. It's like it's impossible. There's always going to be a chink in the armor. There's always going to be a weakness. You just got to find it. So if you go for a technique and someone stops you doing that technique by resisting or changing their angle or changing their body position, there will be something else that they've opened up. It's inevitable. You've just got to find it. So the head position is a key one. So if the head's over there, you're not going to go that way. You're going to go a different way. So but again, it comes back to that first point. Like, you can only see those opportunities if you are aware and open and engaging in jiu-jitsu in a way which is in flow and free. That's when the real stuff happens, right? Johnny Wilkinson talks about this in his rugby career, like trying to get into flow where you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it and you're enjoying the process of doing it. He talks about like washing up, doing the dishes. Like, I'm not sure how true this is, Mr. Wilkinson, but like he gets into flow when he's like he's in it. He's focused and he's enjoying the process of it. Cleaning the dishes, I'm going to do it really well. Hands in the water, how's that feel? Oh, that's nice. Whatever it is. And that's how he used to go kick the ball. You have a routine and you end up in flow. You're not thinking about it. You're just in the moment. And that's what we're searching for, really, because that's the beauty of martial arts, right? It gives us that ability to disconnect from ourselves almost and hover above ourselves and almost watch ourselves develop.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was listening to, this is a strange tangent, but I was listening to Rory Sutherland, who's the CMO of Ogilvy, the big marketing agency, and it's like quite a profound thinker in marketing and human like behaviour. And he was saying how creative people, they can often seem like they're very procrastinating and they just wait for the like last minute to do something. But it's oftentimes because if you stick them into a meeting and then be like, right, come up with ideas, it's like nothing's going to happen for them. It's usually in those times like you're doing the washing up and you're just not thinking about something, or you're in the shower and you have a shower thought, or on the toilet or whatever it is, where like there's nothing else to do, and then all your ideas start to come from those moments. I have loads of ideas in jiu-jitsu that never come on the mats. It's like an idea, or I'll be doing, just some mundane task, and I'll be like, oh, I get like a little epiphany.
Well, the big ideas only happen in the quiet, right? Like, that's a classic kind of thing. And the best example of that is James Dyson. You've probably got a Dyson vacuum at home, right? That technology, that cyclonic filtration or whatever it is, that technology has existed for years in sawmills, just in a big scale. And he was wandering down the road one day and walked past a sawmill and saw this in action and thought, what if I made that smaller? That'd be like the perfect vacuum, because it's sucking sawdust out this sawmill, right, all day. That's what happened. He didn't think about that when he was at his desk sketching things out. He thought about it on a walk. Like, the big ideas only happen when you're quiet. And on that point there about creative people, yeah. So I went to an event in Wales, and there was a guy called Alex Jenkins there, who's a great guy. I'm connected with him, and he was the guy who did the artwork for The Prodigy and all their albums in the streets as well. It's a super cool graphic artist, and he had a thing about creatives, and it was like a scale, and it was like you get set a task, just do nothing, do nothing. Do nothing, do nothing, do nothing, get distracted, do nothing, do nothing, do nothing. The last thing, shit yourself, smash it out of the park. And that's what creative people do.
Yeah.
I can't do that, unfortunately. But.
Yeah, I feel like that's so, like, that is kind of me when it came to like, anything to do with school as well. Like, nothing, I wouldn't be any way to, doing my, summer holidays, they set you some homework. That's getting done the night before, or the morning of, right?
If you're a kid watching this, that is not the way to do it.
Yeah, don't follow the advice. But just back to your point on Dyson, I think, and talking about marketing, he's like such a interesting guy, because who in their right mind would think, I'm going to make a Hoover or a hairdryer and be like, this is going to cost 500-600 quid. Like, who's going to be like, there's no market. If you'd said beforehand, do you think someone would buy a hairdryer for £700? They'd be like, no, you're out of your mind. Like, it's a hairdryer, it dries hair. But for whatever reason, he tapped into some kind of thing where it's like, no, people will buy if it's like this. I guess the same.
If it's good.
Yeah.
If it's
good.
worth it, mate. Yeah. And position yourself in the market. I mean, we had a price change earlier in the year, right? We are the most expensive jiu-jitsu in Leeds, right? No question about it. This place is way more expensive than us around the country, but in Leeds, we're the top. But we're positioning ourselves in a price point where you are guaranteed high quality. Every time you walk through this door, it is immaculate. The coaching's great. Everyone's certified. It's safe. It's welcoming. There's other events and activities. Like, that's what you pay for. And that's why people want to be members here, right? It's worth it. And what happens is, if you position yourself in the market at the very top, everyone else is going to start to eat themselves. So Brass Monkey, Daniel, who founded Brass Monkey, the ice baths, best ice baths in the world, right? Everyone, like Gary Barlow buys them, Joe Wicks buys them, all those guys. People with some money, Russell Brand. Their ice baths are £12,000-13,000. You can get an ice bath for 300 quid. But people will buy Brass Monkey ice baths because they are the very, very best. And he's positioned himself in the market so high, he's now watching from this aerial view of all the small ice bath companies eating themselves, arguing on price, arguing on product. And they're like way out there. And it's a bit like what we've done, really. Like, all the other jiu-jitsu academies who are priced at 60, 70 quid, they're all fighting each other for the same kind of students because they can't offer the quality.
It's something that Alex Hormozy was talking about around pricing yourself so people don't compare you as commodities. So if you are generally the same price as something else, then they will compare you as like a like-for-like thing, and they'll just choose whichever is the cheapest one. Yeah. If you are so far ahead in price that people just can't compare you, people can't compare you to something that's in the market already. They have to assume that there's something that you do is that completely different than what anyone else does, which is quite an interesting insight. In fact, if you don't know him, he owned like a big chain of gyms before then just going to launch new gyms. And one time he's been broke like twice in a row, and he had to find a way to make some money. And he messaged all of his members and said, in 2 weeks' time, everyone's membership fees are going to triple. And he tripled everyone's membership fees. He lost 33% of his membership base. But because everyone's fees had tripled, he actually ended up making like 50% or 25% more money. Can't quite remember. But that allowed him then to offer a completely different level of service to everyone else, because there was less people, so he could service more people better. And they all, the weird thing about price, the higher kind of you price it, the more valuable people experience it. It's like the thing with wine. You heard about this, where if I give you 3 bottles of wine, this one's £1,000, this one's £100, this one's £5.50 from Tesco, right? And you try them, and you're gonna taste them. When they did this, everyone's like £5.50 one's rubbish, £100 one, that's pretty nice. That's the best wine I've ever tasted. It turns out they're all the same wine. It's the same wine from the same bottle, just distilled into thing. And you've increased, if you think about the psychology of this, the value, they still had the better value at the £1,000. All that changed was their perception of what they were receiving because of the price labelled of it. So but while it's a psychological thing, they genuinely experienced that the value was higher. So it's not just a make-believe thing. They did experience something that was of a higher value. All it changed was the price.
Yeah, it might be that. I mean, my granddad again used to say that the best bottle of wine in the world is the one you like the most. Like that might be a £5.50 bottle from Sainsbury's across the road, right? And if it is, that's great. That means on that context I was talking about before, you're going to go and train at one of the small jiu-jitsu academies with 20 members, and you're going to pay £5 a class to train twice a week and dirty mats, and that's cool. Yeah. Fine. But if you enjoy it, that's cool. Sedulo did it. So yesterday I was sat through listening to their last year, and I mean, amazing growth. They're now like a mid-tier advisory firm, 200 employees, 1.2 million turnover a month, doing really, really well. And they changed their fees and went from almost halved their clients, but tripled their revenue and profit. And when Paul, who's a friend of mine who owns Sedulo and founded it, told the staff that they were going to like put the fees up loads, but they were going to offer this amazing quality service, everyone's like shit themselves. Like, we're going to lose everyone. Yeah. How can I tell my client that we're just going to go up by whatever? The people who value it will stay. I mean, we put our prices up in February. Of course, we lost some people. That's absolutely fine. They're the people who like £5.50 wine. They go and train somewhere else. That's cool. And it's been difficult for us because this last quarter has been really tough for everyone in the industry. I was chatting to Simon Ling yesterday from GB UK, who owns Gracie Bar Arnold and has a stake in Newark as well, I think. His students run Newark Mel down there. And they've been struggling. For the last quarter, everyone's been struggling. But I do think that will come good. And the price doesn't just enable us to generate more revenue, more profit. It allows you to put more back in. That's the thing. Tzulo's whole thing yesterday was that the business was found to make a shit ton of cash to do good things with. So if you look at their foundation, like they do amazing things around period poverty for girls. We did the back to school campaign with them at Christmas. 700 kids got Christmas presents and one that got them. And we want to create our own GBRL foundation, don't we? So that's something for the future. And you can only do those good things if you have the resources. And to have the resources, you've got to bring in the money.
Which I guess is the difference between like the cost of something and the value of something, because the cost of something is something that people can compete on. Like you can compete on price, well, until zero, but the value of something can go up to infinite, right? So and I'd say like jiu-jitsu is a very valuable thing, you know, in terms of what people receive. If you think about the amount of people that you hear, where it's to the point where it's a cliche statement, jiu-jitsu saved my life. Well, if I was about to kill you and I had something that could save your life, how much would you pay for it? You'd pay quite a lot because you value the thing that it's going to give you. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the state of jiu-jitsu. Obviously, if you look at, like, a lot of people look at America as a 5-year ahead of wherever the UK is going to be, or 10 years ahead of wherever the UK is going to be, their prices are much higher than in the UK. In fact, when I was training in Thailand, I was paying more in Bangkok than I was in Harrogate. Yeah. And that was in 2019, early 2019.
Oh, we are behind the curve a little bit. The value proposition hasn't kind of landed for everyone in the UK just yet. It's something Victor spoke about like 15 years ago to us. Yeah, God, I've been around for a long time. Yeah, at least 15 years ago, I remember me standing in front, I've told this story before in seminars, like stood in front of us all at GB Leeds, and there was only like 1 or 2 schools in Leeds. In fact, I think there was only 1. And we were all paying £5 a class and wearing whatever geese we wanted, and the mats were filthy and it was bloody freezing. And he stood in front of us and said, like, it will change, and we're going to go to a membership model, and it's going to be high quality. It's going to be like going to David Lloyd or whatever, like nice gym. And we were just like thinking, this guy's gone mad. But he was right. And it's going that way. We've not quite got it there. We're probably the trendsetters in our region. Well, not probably. We are the trendsetters in our region of moving towards that higher quality product where it's world class, it's exceptional all the time. I mean, look at the kids program that we're about to launch, that you're about to launch, T. I mean, that takes us to a whole new level, right? So the value is just going to go up and up and up.
Yeah, and if you are interested in that kids stuff, you can check on the rolling report. And if we've lost video now because the SD cards have just gotten full and full. So
Oh, never mind.
too many podcasts on there. But yeah, you can keep listening on the audio. The kids, they will put out some more information on the kids' timetables around the roadmap. By the time you listen to this, will be out. So you can look at all the dates of things changing. Important for the adults too, because on certain days, on certain dates, the adults classes will start to move 15 minutes back, which will be good for a lot of people I know. I know Veronica's excited because with working in town a few days a week, she would only get back here for around 6.
Yeah.
So it gives her that bit of time to actually get into the class. And I wanted to touch on some good news from the rolling report as well, which if you guys haven't seen it yet, just check your inboxes, maybe check the spam folder if you can't find it. It's the newsletter that Way's putting out.
The weekly newsletter, yeah.
Weekly newsletter, and it's got some good news stories, like Sam winning his MMA fight on the weekend, which is really cool. Having taught the head and arm choke like in the class that day or something, or the day before as well. And it inspired me to teach the takedown was really nice too. So I was like, out of Sam's inspiration, let's teach the inside trip this week. So I taught it in the kids' classes and told the kids about Sam's win, which was nice for them. Then we've also, where we were talking about the guidebooks we've got out. Now there's actually, might arrive today actually, I've got some new member welcome cards which will have links to all the things, like, so it's kind of like a QR code. It's got maybe a message from me and you in there. It's got the guidebooks, it's got the warm-up, all these things that a new member might want, just to get them, like, so it's got like the first stripe guidebooks, they can do all that. So that'll be a nice little addition. And an easy place to find the guidebooks. Got a nice little interview with Nicola.
Yep.
Because not many people get to know Nicola after they sign up.
She's the gatekeeper, right?
Yeah, that's how I call her. But she plays a massive role for us here in the academy, and probably doesn't get as much recognition because it's not necessarily jiu-jitsu related, her role, or she won't speak to the broad community base like, Soaps might, or Wade is, or Mia, you are on the mats. But absolutely crucial for us as a business to keep running with what Nicola does. So read that, get to know the team a bit more. And we've got some key dates. Got the Professor Akil Mobility Seminar this weekend. So that'll just be in own clothes or no gi kit, whatever you're comfortable in, just working on some mobility. I know there's about 16 people going to it, I think, at the moment. So I know it's a lot of our mature members, so hopefully that'll be a good benefit to them. We've got a little, I don't know what you call it, like an offer for the David Lloyd's members. Obviously with Joe, as you guys heard on the podcast recently, is the head of sales at David Lloyd's. And we made some flyers, so they go in their new member welcome packs, but we thought, if someone's a member already, if they want to come in and start training in jiu-jitsu with us, that's totally cool too. And I left you with a little quote at the end, and I'll let you find that on the email when you look at it later.
Yeah. There's some great examples of the things that we're able to do. Now we've got a bigger team, and now the business is in a place where we can afford to do it. Like those guidebooks, you're not going to find them in any other academy. Not any. I've not known any academy to produce something like that ever. So you're not going to find it. You're not going to find the depth of coaching that you've got here, where everyone's certified, and everyone's first aid trained, and everyone's DBS checked, and there's always a 6-to-1 ratio with the kids. You're not going to find it, man. It's as simple as that. So I'm really proud of what we're doing. The rolling report's really good. Wade's done a great job in Bangkok doing that. Big shout out to Nicola, because like T says, she's someone who is absolutely at the centre of our business, but isn't in the limelight often. And she does an amazing job nurturing all our leads, people who are interested in jiu-jitsu, and trying to get them to the trial class so they can have a great time. Conversion rate's always good when they come here. Could be better, but it's always pretty good. And yeah, like I say, I think we're going to turn a corner now in the next month or so. The weather's getting better. Although it hailstoned yesterday and people had to de-ice the cars this morning, which is a bit strange in late April. Weather's getting better, it's getting brighter. People are going to want to do more things. I think you'll see more and more new members. So when you do, just a reminder for all of our current members to remember what it was like when you first started. Like if you've been here now for 2-3 years, like just remember back what it was like. It was tough, man. You didn't know anyone. So put your arm around someone, check in on them after class, help them out, partner with them, and give them the experience. Because to T's point, and I promoted someone this week to their first stripe who's been going through an absolutely dreadful time. And he said to me that the first time in 10 years he hadn't had a drink for 2 weeks, and he puts the majority of that down to this place. And his friend, who is a member here and one of our assistant coaches who brought him in. That's the thing you can do for people, man. And you don't know who that's going to be. So share it, nurture people when they get here, and let's grow as a team.
Awesome, man. Cool. Until next time, us.